portion of our meeting. So if you do have a question, just invite you to raise your hand. I'll come to you first, and then we'll kind of rotate with D and I. So whoever wants to bring right here. All right, sir. So I'll hold the mic here for you if you want to ask your question.
I've been on council 30 years. We work a lot, and the municipal affairs regulations are always came to the top. How come they were ignored by municipal affairs this year? That person, and we brought it forward to Rick McGuire when he was the chair of municipal affairs, and he kind of just waved it on. And other people brought it up and got the same kind of response. So I'm pissed, pardon my French, that I worked hard for my town to the point where at one time we were debt free. And now we're up to our ears again. And those people should be responsible for that. The guy who was a CAO, as far as I'm concerned, he should be in jail.
So, thanks. I hear where you're coming from for sure, and hear a lot of support for the frustration that you're expressing. I gotta be honest with you. I've worked for municipal affairs for a long time. The situation that arose in this community, we've had communities encounter financial difficulties before. This one was unprecedented. This was new to us. In the degree, the depth of the hole, and the amount of time that it persisted. And so when that situation was brought to the attention of our minister, his immediate focus was on how do we stop the bleeding and how do we assess the viability of the town going forward. And that was based on the request of the current council to focus on that viability aspect. I know the council did a lot of work, supported by the ministry, to stop the leaks in the boat and to start bailing out. And I think there's going to be time in the right way to maybe look backwards and ask some of those questions. I'm not saying they're bad questions, they're legitimate questions. But I think our first focus when this situation came to our attention, that was more serious than we've seen with a lot of other communities in Alberta that have encountered financial difficulties, was how can we support the community with grants where we need to, with deferred payments where we need to, and stop the bleeding? And then how can we support the community in this exercise? And I know this isn't a comfortable exercise to be in right now, where we take a hard look and say, financially and in other respects, is the community viable going forward? But our minister's feeling was that's the most important question to answer right now. It doesn't mean the questions about what happened before, why it happened, who's to blame, or bad questions or illegitimate questions. That's just not the process that we decided to do first.
I'm Charlotte Richmond. I'm the current counselor for the Town of Gibbons. I have a question about the timeline. The timeline seems to only be from the time that we took office. There was a history previous to our being elected. Why is that long history not included? And my follow-up is, what accountability has changes have occurred from this? Because it was stated that there was nothing to see here, legislative compliance. We come into office and we're weeks away from insolvency. We were told that government was going to fix it for us. Yes, they did give us some deferrals and some grants, but we were told to fix it ourselves. We did, and now it feels like we're being punished for doing what we were asked. And we are the only people, and our citizens are only ones being accountable for something they did not create.
I'll say, I hope Maggie listened to us tonight, felt like a punishment, but this viability review process is not intended in any way to be punitive. I think we have tried to acknowledge the tremendous hard work that the current council has done in inheriting the situation. And my hope is that's reflected in the viability report, in the fact that the current budget and in the 3-year plan is balanced. That, as I said earlier, the leaks have been stopped, the bailing out process has begun, but now it's time for the community to figure out, which direction you want to steer the boat and who gets to steer the boat. But that's not to say or to in any way minimize the work that's been done. And the role of municipal affairs in this process really is not to come in any kind of punitive way. We're here hopefully to inform the community in the conversation that you're having to determine, are you going to be viable financially and in other respects going forward. Our job is to provide the information to help you make that decision. A lot of that information comes from the town itself, because you're the best source of that information. Other information comes from the county in terms of their perspective on what would happen in that scenario if you dissolve the county. And other information comes from our history of dealing with other communities in viability reviews and what considerations are relevant and what options tend to sometimes work and what options tend to sometimes not work. So that's our role in the process. We're not here to punish. In terms of the timelines and looking backwards, I would say we can only go back so far in this conversation tonight that's focused on the viability review report and preparing for the vote in a couple weeks' time. As I said earlier, that doesn't mean the community can't have, that there's no room for a conversation that looks further back and asks about what went wrong and what can be done in the future, not only in this community but province-wide, to make sure something like that doesn't happen again. And I'll freely admit, we haven't seen a situation exactly like this, so we are taking the hard look to say, do we have all the right early warning systems in place as municipal affairs when communities encounter situations like this? And I don't know the answer to that because we haven't done that work yet. We, like you, have been focused on the immediate challenges. Let's get through this period. But we have that work to do on our end as well to figure out, are we exercising the right degree of oversight? There can be too much, but there can also be not enough in some circumstances. So that's work that we will have to do as well after this is all over.
My name is Ashley Morris, and I'm a current councillor for the Town of Gibbons. My question, I just speak to you, with you, not behind you. So, my question tonight, on your slide 24, you indicated, this is when technology is bad. On your slide 24, you indicated $1.12 million that was built into the 26 budget. That was for principal and interest payment of debt. We've got, now I'm going to forget my number, but $870,000 that is built into the 2026 budget. And every budget there forward for debt, principal payment and interest payment that negates your $405,000 annual mandatory payment for tax increases. That amount is in every budget going forward with the 7% increase. It's built into our 22%. So I really question why Municipal Affairs is saying there's a 42% tax increase required. We totally respect, as a council and as a community, the support that Municipal Affairs has given us. However, I have to tell you, we absolutely do not support this viability report because it is 100% biased.
Thanks, Councillor. I appreciate the comment. And let me say, I don't think any of us up here is from Gibbons. We work for Municipal Affairs. Our only responsibility, our only interest is in following our minister's directions, following the Municipal Government Act, providing this community with the information that we can to the best of our ability to help you make your decisions. So we haven't been in the thick of the conversation here, so I apologize if you read anything in the report and read that language and it comes off as biased. That's not our intent, that's not our role. We don't, as a department, as an organization, have a preference as to whether the community remains as a distinct town or dissolved into the county. That's not our role. Our role is to inform the conversation. Your role as community members is to make your preference known to the minister and to the government through the vote.
Why did you not include the $800,000 net interest repayment in 2026 in the future years when you have now told our community that there's a minimum of $405,000 year over year for the 2030 repayment? You have to have included that, and you didn't. It's an absolute misstatement in your report.
I apologize, Councillor. You asked a very long and complicated question, and I was in the middle of answering it. To finish, without, and Kevin may want to comment on the specific numbers, but just to recap, the difference in the scenarios between what the council identified in its projected 3-year budget as a tax increase and what Municipal Affairs identified as a potential tax increase has to do with the additional revenue that we believe would be required to get the town back to a full level of sustainability, where it is in a position in its operating budget to be resilient and to respond to unforeseen challenges, and where it's in a position in its infrastructure budget to begin to start thinking about capital replacement, renewal, and repair. So it's not just dealing with the immediate debt crisis. So you can have legitimate different perspectives on which of those things is more important right now. You can, as a community and a council, decide we're going to go with the 22%. We're not going to invest further in our reserves as outlined in the Municipal Affairs scenario. You don't have to do that. We're just presenting a scenario if you did that, which we think is a more complete path back to financial resiliency. That's the order of magnitude increase we think would be represented. And so you can look at the town's estimate and ours as kind of pulls on the spectrum in terms of how far you want to go along with your financial recovery, how quickly, and that's a decision for the community to make.
All right, so we're going to take a question over here now.
Hello, my name is John, and I moved to Gibbons about a year and a half ago. I enjoyed living here very much. I do have a question about the information provided to us for the vote. If it's a town, the town council has provided a budget to give some reasonable idea of their priorities, what they'll contribute to, I don't know, the library or things like that. Has the Sturgeon County provided any kind of budget that shows what would be supported in the community of Gibbons? I don't have enough information to make a decision on what Sturgeon County will or will not do or will or will not support.
No problem at all. There we go. So when a lot of the estimates were done, quite bluntly, the town of Gibbons was actually in the middle of the budget cycle. The budget was passed at the very beginning of May of 2026. The workbooks for the town of Gibbons were due in the middle of April, and the workbooks for Sturgeon County were due back to us at the end of April of 2026. So a final budget had not been passed yet by the town of Gibbons, which did not allow Sturgeon County to be able to try to prepare a full budget as well. A lot of this is very specifically to do because of this accelerated timeline. A normal viability review, and we're not doing it in this
kind of a rush scenario, would take 12 to 18 months to complete. This one has been done in 3. So as you can imagine, we've been able to pull together the best information that we could in the time frames that we were able to pull it together in.
All right, thanks, Kevin. We've got a question at the back with D.
Hi, my name's Daryl Burak. I'm also a councillor with Gibbons, but first and foremost, I'm a taxpayer. My question is for Mr. Kevin Miller. You are in charge of the compliance review. When you brought the compliance review back to the town of Gibbons, you said that there was no big deals and nothing that was of major concern. When you then took over and did the viability review, you noted that you were going to do a scathing report, and you haven't seen anything like that since the Great Depression. My question is, how in the hell did you miss the Great Depression? And by the words of Minister Williams, why didn't you do your damn job?
Thank you, Councillor. I would also remind you of the words of Minister Williams when he met most recently with your council and indicated to you he felt it was grossly inappropriate for you to single out individual public servants when you have a policy concern with the government of Alberta. That should ultimately be addressed to a fellow elected official, the minister. But I will say on that score, just to clarify for folks in the room, when Municipal Affairs learns of potential issues in a community, and there are 330 municipalities across Alberta, so you can imagine, we do get a lot of letters, and some of them are early warning signs of legitimate problems, and some of them are people who are dissatisfied in one way or another with what's going on in their community. We have a number of tools that are available to help us assess what might be going on in the community and to help support the council and administration of the community with dealing with what those issues are. One of those tools is a legislative compliance check, and that is not in any way an in-depth financial audit. It is intended to assess at a high level compliance with a number of important clauses and provisions of the Municipal Government Act. That is often an indication that helps a council and an administration identify problems and get back on track where they have potentially fallen off in terms of their bylaws, their budgeting process, how they make decisions. So that process was undergone here in Gibbons. It was not a tool that was probably ideally suited to finding the type of financial problems that were going on in this community. And so that's one of the things, again, I said we have some things to go back and look at in Municipal Affairs to say, are we using the right screening? Are we finding problems early enough in the right way? And that's something we'll have to go back and figure out. But that legislative compliance review, which did note a number of significant issues, was not primarily intended as a financial deep dive. However, it was also not intended as a report back to the community that everything is fine financially. There were significant issues noted in that legislative compliance check, and we continue to look forward to official indication from council that those have been addressed.
Okay. All right, we've got a question back here.
Hi, Luke Richer, resident of Gibbons. I appreciate that this review and this report was done in a supremely expedited timeline. I think 3 to 4 months, so very significant timeline. I think, just in follow-up to the other gentleman's question there, the vote, and we're lacking some significant information, obviously due to the expedited timeline of this report, but the infrastructure audit, pretty significant, lacking information. That can significantly impact capital and operating projections. Specific services and levels, that's not clearly defined in the report. Taxes, permanent or temporary. I've heard some the Hamlet tax listed there, but is that a special tax? Is that a residential sub-assessment that's done for the Hamlet on a permanent basis? And then even utility fees. So in my opinion, some significant information lacking in order to really have an informed decision on whether to remain a town or whether or not the town is viable. Is there a scenario where this vote is maybe deferred until some of that information is made available? And I appreciate that when this viability report or exercise was started, the town of Gibbons had stated it was in a very different position than maybe it is today. Obviously, we're in a better position, and maybe we would be better suited to make or have this vote once an appropriate level of information is made available.
Yeah, very, very fair set of questions. I think, and answering some of them is above my pay grade. I will say that, you know, council has approached the minister about that, and his position at the time, not that I can speak for his final answer or his current position, but his position at the time was no, that this viability review was necessary to provide some certainty on the future of the town. It was requested by the council, and he intended for it to proceed. So I'm not saying there's absolutely no possibility for council to revisit that with the minister, but that was his position at the time. You know, I think it's fair to point out that there is not complete certainty about tax rates or anything else. I think we have 4 viability reviews going on in the province right now. We do a number every year. There is never absolute certainty in any of those about what the scenario is going to look like if the community remains versus if it dissolves. There's always some degree of uncertainty as to the specific service level that are going to be provided, how the county is going to adapt, not just immediately, which they do speak to in the report, but after a period of years. So again, not unreasonable of you to ask or to point that out. It just sort of is a feature of these viability review processes that we don't always know exactly what the tax rates are going to be and what the future is going to hold. With respect to the infrastructure study, I think you're right to point out that information in terms of long-term infrastructure requirements is absolutely going to be relevant to council as it prepares its long-term capital plans. In this case, unlike in some other viability reviews where you have a village of 100 people or 200 people that is at risk of losing its running water because they know the condition of the pipes is really, really not good, the infrastructure condition is somewhat less relevant in this viability review compared to the debt situation and sort of the overall financial picture, but you're absolutely right, it is relevant and it is an unknown.
All right, so I'm just going to do a quick time check. I know we've got about 10 or so minutes. We're trying to get to anybody who hasn't asked a question yet, so I'm going here.
Hi, my name is Meg Knox, and I've been a resident of Gibbons for about 2 years. My question is, has the information provided in this review been skewed towards favoring the county as an outcome to sweep the town of Gibbons under the rug because we're an embarrassment because the red flags were not paid attention to when they were raised in the past few years?
You know, I understand why you would ask that, I guess, and all I can say is absolutely no, that is not the case. Again, we at Municipal Affairs in the department come to work every day and we work with the 330 municipalities across Alberta. We try and support their administrations, we try and support their councils to make the best decisions they can, to deliver the best services they can. That's our only agenda. We are not associated with, affiliated with, partial to Sturgeon County in any way or to the town of Gibbons in any way for that matter. We're intending to provide objective information and advice to yourselves as citizens and ultimately to our minister and the government decision makers.
Thank you. Okay, Dee, we've got someone and then the gentleman in the hat afterwards.
Hi, my name is Amanda. I've lived here for about a year. I just would like some clarity on what you mean by helping us make a decision when the decider is the minister and not the town of Gibbons.
Yeah, you're right, and actually thanks for calling me out on that because I'm used to the process the way it used to work, and Sarah did mention earlier. In recent amendments to the Municipal Government Act, the vote of electors is no longer binding. It is an input to the ministers and ultimately cabinet's decision-making process. So thank you for calling me on that, being a little loose in my language there. That being said, the vote of electors is still a part of the process. Government did not take that out of the process. Minister Williams has said repeatedly it's a fundamental part of the process for him. He's going to take that input very seriously. And in case folks are wondering, the decision to make that legislative change was not motivated by Gibbons. We have had about 20 viability reviews over the past number of years where a community has gone through a review, voted to remain, gotten in even worse shape 5 years, 10 years down the road, went through another review. Some of them ended up dissolving at that point. Some of them actually went through a third process. And so government felt we need an option for cabinet to make a decision when there are other considerations that they should be taking into account. That doesn't mean the vote is unimportant. I have heard the minister say the vote is very important to him, and he will take seriously what the community expresses to him as their preference.
All right, so I know we've got at least 5. We got 1 here, 2 up here, 1 at the back, and here for new questions. So we will see where we're at with time after those 5. And again, if we didn't get to your question, we do have the email there. So gentleman right here.
Hi, my name is Nettis Mitchell. I've been a resident of Gibbons for 47 years. I have a question for you, sir, regarding the compatibility study and the viability report. You did both. Somewhere in there, you would think if you knew what you were doing, you would have noticed there was a distinct difference. You have taken up a lot of time with word salad, and the minister is deeply concerned, and where we get, as Joe Public, I have heard deeply concerned about so many things. Deeply concerned belongs in the bottom floor of an outhouse. That's about as much good as what he said.
I didn't hear a question there, and I will ask folks keep their comments and questions respectful going forward, or we can conclude the session. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Vicki Zinnick. The horse is out of the barn, obviously, and I know our current council is working extremely hard to get it back in. But in absence of that, I have one thing to say about performance metrics and reporting. It's been a number of years since I've been in municipal government, so I could be way out to lunch, but I think that municipalities have to report their financial metrics every year to Municipal Affairs. And then those metrics are actually compared to like-sized municipalities to give an indication of whether or not they're offside. If that's not being done now, it probably should be being done to help flag some of these issues. And then finally, and sorry, I know I'm monopolizing. Finally, I know that we've talked about should it be a hamlet, should it be a town. Is there an option in here for a specialized municipality as opposed to a straight? I know that still means that the county would take us over, but it has a different connotation in the way that we partner more, we have more autonomy, we have more say about our town. I know there's 6 of them in the province. Is this an option for us?
That's a good question that I also probably don't want to speak on behalf of the minister for. I think we are right now in a viability review process that legislatively needs to end with a decision on dissolution of the community or not. That doesn't necessarily mean that following that, the minister can't act on advice of either the town council or the county or the community at large and look at a different option. That's not an immediate outcome of this process. I mean, the minister is going to get the result of this vote and is either going to have to make a decision to recommend dissolution to cabinet or not. Bigger picture, again, if the town council decided or if others decided, hey, we want to make that recommendation to the minister, there's a third way, there's a different solution here. I don't think it's completely impossible. Sarah, I don't know if, did you want to comment on the other point? Yeah.
On the data? Hi, yeah, and the first part of your question was regarding the data that's reported and then, I guess, tools, reports that are available. So yes, we have a couple of tools. One is called the Municipal Measurement Index. And this is a website available. I'm sure if you Googled Municipal Measurement Index, it will bring you to it. And it is a tool where you can look at the financial information for your municipality. You can see how your municipality performs against key indicators. And you can produce reports that compare to other municipalities, whether it's in your region or other municipalities of similar size across the province. That is a team, it's not the viability review team that does that, but a team within Municipal Affairs. And so if anyone was using that tool and needed some help, absolutely, you could contact Municipal Affairs and be connected with an information advisor.
All right, so I think we've got time, just being respectful of everyone's time. It's 9 o'clock. If everyone has a couple of more minutes, I think we had 3 last questions. So Dee, we're gonna go, I think you have one beside the one, then here, and then over in the yellow over there. Nope, that's good. Okay, we'll go right here.
Hi, thanks for coming out. A lot of conflicting information, like the tax rates that we saw on the screen between you guys, you know, town council here, Sturgeon County, quite different. If we end up staying a town and things don't go well, let's say in 3 years when we have to start repaying the capital debt principal, what happens? Do we end up right back here, or does something different happen? Thank you.
Good question again. I think Sarah looked like she might have some thoughts on that. So what happens if the decision is for the town to remain? The minister will most likely issue binding directives to the town council administration. So that essentially, and again, is not intended to be a punitive thing, but it is intended to be a period of time where Municipal Affairs exercises a higher degree of oversight than is normal. And so we would ask for more detailed financial plans and longer-term financial plans than we would normally ask for a community to produce. And they would have to regularly report back to the ministry on that. There would also potentially be an official administrator, as there is currently in place, that would remain in place for the initial period of those directives till the work on them is well underway. So again, a measure of slightly increased oversight from Municipal Affairs as compared to the normal situation. But none of that means it's impossible that things might go wrong. Through no one's fault, things don't always go as planned. That is possible. And we could theoretically be back in a situation where the ministry has to take another look at the viability of the community. But I think, at the risk of overstating things, I think you saw a couple different scenarios presented tonight where the municipality there's a viable path forward as a standalone town. There's a viable path forward as part of Sturgeon County. It's just a question of you know, what you think about the degree of the impacts in the different areas that we went through: governance, services, finances. There's a path each way, and it's about you weighing which of those is really preferable. Do you want to add on options?
Sure. Thank you. So again, this is a legislated process, and we're making our way through the milestones of the process. If we go through a scenario where the town remains, the minister issues directives, we've talked about typically there's been a monitoring period for about 5 years where the municipality is reporting on progress to the ministry. If the minister or the town, you know, determines in that 5-year period that it's not going as hoped, the legislation does allow the minister to consider to put it back to another vote. And so in a way, you know, we could update the viability review report at that point and do the vote. If it was well beyond the 5 years, the process could start again. Or you know, a minister or a council of the future could look at other options if the situation has likely evolved. There's other intervention options available to the minister, like an inspection, which looks more at the management of a municipality, versus right now we're looking at the viability of the municipality. So there are options that could be looked at.
Okay, thanks, Sarah. All right, we have time for one last question here.
I have one question and a follow-up on a previous. Who has the final say that the boundaries must be changed to allow for Gibbons to have 2 representatives on council that are Gibbons residents? And on the previous question, Municipal Affairs or the minister can decide whether or not, if we vote 90% stay as a town, minister can say no. Why are we doing this vote if our vote does not count?
Answer the first part of your question. I'll try and answer the second part, which is to say, your vote counts very much. It's just not absolutely binding on the government. It is the expression of your will as a community, your perspective, your opinion. It absolutely counts. It's just government made a recent legislative change to give itself the discretion in certain circumstances where they need to go in a different direction than a community vote. And I'll say again, because it's true, even though the first time I said it, there were some snickers in the room, that legislative change had absolutely nothing to do with Gibbons.
Thanks for your question regarding a council representation. So ultimately, if the town were to dissolve, cabinet decides what goes into what's called an order in council, and that's a legal document that expresses the transition of what happens. And so it is an option to cabinet to create parameters around what the transition for electoral representation would be. Often we will look to history to help us understand a current circumstance. So the closest past dissolution in terms of the size of the municipality was the town of Grand Cache, I believe in 2018. There are about 3,500 people. And so in that case, also you have to consider the population of the municipality that's receiving them, right? Because electoral representation is really, there's actually a Supreme Court case that actually looked at a provincial case from Saskatchewan, but there's kind of established law now, I guess common law in Canada, about like a plus minus, so that, you know, electoral units are roughly equal, and so that voices are, you know, roughly the same across the governance structure. And so in Grand Cache, what happened was the cabinet wrote an order that invited the council, the town council, to nominate, I think in that case it was 2 people from their town to be temporary councillors on the council, which was the MD of Greenview that they were going on to. And in that case, Grand Cache represented an immediate population increase of 40% in the MD of Greenview. So that's a significant change. And so that was the immediate representation. And it was about midway through an electoral term for the municipal governments. And so right now we're only 6 or 7 months into the current council term, right? The next general municipal election is in 2029. By-elections can happen if there's resignations, of course. And so my best guess would be that we would look at the town's population against Sturgeon County's population, determine what would make sense in terms of a temporary representative until the 2029 election. And the cabinet can order Sturgeon County to require them to do a review of their electoral boundaries. How is their map divided up? Are they making sure there's a reasonable plus minus of where people reside and how they're represented on the council? And the minister could require them to do that review before the 2029 general election, so it's understood and all in place before nomination begins, which nomination begins on the January 1st before the election, which is always held in October. So I hope that helps.
Thanks, Sarah. Oh, yeah, Mara.
Hi, thank you. I just wanted to address the first part of your question just to clarify that if the community were to vote overwhelmingly in favor of remaining, it is not up to Minister Williams alone to decide if he would like to overturn that vote. So he would need to take that to his cabinet colleagues for an ultimate decision on that.
All right, so being mindful of time that we have in the facility, we do have to wrap up the question and answer period. Again, I know that there was still some questions that were not answered. We couldn't get to everyone. Please take note of the email and phone number if you have any questions from tonight, or if you sleep on it and you have something else. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ethan to provide us with some closing remarks.
And I don't think I really have any remarks other than to say, again, thank you for your time. I heard in the questions a lot of passion for your community, a lot of frustration with what's happened, and people being put in situations that they didn't ask for and that weren't their fault. And we know that's real. We unfortunately didn't come here tonight to solve that for you. We came here tonight to try and provide you with some information to let you make some informed voting decisions going forward. I hope we've helped at least a little bit with that. If you still have more questions, we have shared contact information for Municipal Affairs, and we welcome those questions. And we thank you very much for your time and attention tonight. Thanks, everyone.